So no matter what happens in this election, it's going to be the most pro-crypto Congress that we've ever had. And I think that just means that the U.S. is more likely to get legislation passed that will allow this industry to flourish, allow investors and consumers to be protected in the United States. And that's really what Coinbase has been advocating for many, many years now.
Credit, debt, and drives the economy and how that works. So number one, and it goes through a big cycle. Number two is internal order and disorder. So number three, which we're experiencing in the United States and some other countries, are experiencing at an extreme, right? Number three is the world order. And, you know, the rise of a great power and then the competition.
This is China v. the U.S.
China and then those and then, And what is the order? What is the rules? Other rules?
Trying to figure that out.
So it changes. It used to be dominant. It's no longer dominant. Number four is...
Pandemics.
It was, droughts, acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics have killed more people than wars and toppled more orders than anything else. So climate, like for example, and pandemics are a bigger part of our lives. And then number five is technology, people's inventiveness, and they come up with technology. And these things go in cycles. The first three are big cycles. They've evolved. And then these others are disruptive. The four of those are concerning, the first four of those. The debt is concerning, the internal conflict is concerning, the external conflict is concerning, and certainly the climate and the cost of the climate is concerning. And then technology is a two-edged sword. So those are... So everything that we'll ever talk about and you'll ever interview
fits into that thing.
Fits into that, and understanding also the relationships between it is key. So seeing it in the big cycle way and seeing the relationship between these things is key.
Every story we talk about, I think, on CNBC relates in some way to these themes. So what about here? How does that fit in? There's just so much enthusiasm. I was just talking about some of the numbers in terms of growth and transitions in the economy. You've been coming here for years. How dramatically different is it? And what should investors know?
Dramatically different. But I think then we go back to the elements of what makes a place successful. Okay, so we take this. Okay, financially are you successful? Do you earn more money than you spend? Do you have a good income statement and a balance sheet? Okay, that's number one. Number two, do you have internal order where the people work together in a favorable way? Number three is very important. Are you going to be involved in a big international conflict that's going to be damaging or not? These are really the first three. Then, of course, climate and technology. So when I come here, and whatever country you pick, you ask yourself things like, do they educate their children well in to become talented and then also civil with each other? And do you come out to an environment which lends itself to being productive and raising living standards? These are the standards.
So this checks the boxes.
It changed radically when His Excellency MDS took power.
So investment destinations.
People don't see this. You know, every country, there's pros and cons and there are controversial things. But if you're talking about now seeing this and how the changes are taking place, it's a remarkable place. He is a Lee Kuan Yew or a Deng Xiaoping of the area because of the strength and quality of the changes.
What should the Federal Reserve do next week? Good question. I would be continuing on the path of reducing the interest rate. I would do 25. I would not do 50. But there's nothing in the data that came in that really changes the median run outlook, which is kind of what they aim for, right? You're trying to set policy to affect the economy, but it won't affect it today. It's going to affect it 8 months down the road. So you're trying to sort of all when the data comes in, it's like, well, where is the economy going? And where should we put policy to be calibrated with that? Also, you want to make sure that you don't get too far out of whack one way or the other if the economy doesn't perform the way you expect it to. So it's all about keeping the monetary policy in a good place to be able to respond to risks if they manifest themselves on either side, but really keeping it normalizing as the economy is normalized.
Zimbabwe's government has passed a resolution to adopt the gold-backed ZiG currency as the country's sole legal tender. That's as the ruling party looks to end the use of U.S. dollars, but no timelines have been given for when the change will actually happen. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Indira Ogaga, who is joining us from Kigali. So, Indira, walk us through this. What more do we know?
Jen, so what we know is that the ZANU-PF was holding its annual conference where delegates came from all parts of the country to discuss social, political, and economic issues in the country. And this de-dollarization agenda was one of the resolutions. And because it's the ruling party, most of its directives anchor and inform government policy. So we are likely to see it throw a little bit of weight behind the declaration by the president in 2023 to fully de-dollarize the economy, though timelines remain uncertain. How they could do this is they could gradually phase out the dollar while injecting and increasing circulation of ZiG in the market. This is to avoid economic shocks and also ensure that there isn't extreme pressure on the ZiG. Alternatively, they could introduce legislation that mandates 100% transactions of ZiG. They did this in 2019. It didn't end well because their currency ended up losing 80% of its value to the dollar, and the Zim dollar ended up being decommissioned.
What does this mean then for the economy, Indira? As you mentioned, I mean, the currency has really been a drag for a number of years, but are we seeing any bright shoots right now?
Jen, not likely, because the central bank was forced to devalue the Zimbabwean gold by 43% in September, and this led to inflation shooting up to 37.2% from 5.8% the previous month. To try and cushion the people, the government introduced a $40 raise to civil servants, but local labor unions say that this has not gone a long way, because if you look at the difference between the official rate and the parallel rate is at 28 in the official rate, and the parallel rate is quoting 40 to 50, hence eroding that benefit. The central bank has also hiked its rate to 35% from 20, and this is likely to increase the cost of credit.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher, and you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you're joining the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have Coinbase's Brian Armstrong on the election. The next administration is going to be pro-crypto. And how does he know that? Because the politicians are paid puppets. Their job is to move along the NWO's agenda. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And we have Ray Dalio has been saying the same thing for decades. And it seems like every piece that he says slowly comes true. The battle between the superpowers, U.S. and China. How long has he been saying that? Now we're starting to see it come together. But we know Anthony Sutton told us that a long time ago, way before Ray Dalio. And Ray Dalio talks about the debt, talks about the inflation, weather wars, the technology. And we know AI is going to change everything that we do. But one key piece he talked about is educating the youth to stir the future. And we know the NWO takes the greatest minds to move the agenda. And they're at the Saudi Arabia conference. And we know Saudi Arabia is leading this fourth industrial revolution, especially the metaverse. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. Now we have the former Fed says she will continue to lower rates. And she admitted that cutting rates don't immediately affect the economy. And the same thing goes for if you raise rates. And that's the reason why the Fed raised rates the fastest in history. Got us up to 5%, knowing that by the time they start lowering, it would have already destroyed the legacy economy, and we can already see that. So as they're lowering rates, they're also moving in this digital economy as their savior. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And we have Zimbabwe turns to a gold currency, getting off the dollar. And we see Nigeria needs to do the same. Yes, you're going to feel a little pain, but it's worth it. And we have Trump tariffs. And it doesn't matter whether Harris is in office or Trump is in office, we're going to get tariffs the same way Biden kept on Trump's tariffs. But either way, it's going to cause inflation and a trade war. plus a currency war, and that will eventually bring us to a level playing field and bring us into these digital currencies and everything being tokenized and put on blockchain. So therefore, your life is nothing but a video game. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have Corning fiber optics getting ready for all this data. But if you put aside Corning and you look at the internet and these submarine fiber optics that's been in the ocean, and this runs our internet without a human even knowing. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Well, Nigeria's local currency has fallen to a record low after a steep drop in dollar liquidity in the foreign exchange market. Africa's largest crude producer has struggled to stabilize its currency since it was allowed to trade freely against the dollar in June last year.
Is it negotiating a lot of the tariffs that we hear from Trump?
Well, the moniker that I've used is take this very seriously. He's going to raise tariffs, but don't necessarily take every single thing literally, because the team needs to work out the specific details. And that's how I expect it to play out.
But if we're talking specifically about tariffs, the Trump has made these points about 10% across the board, or 20%, or 60% for China. And the point I was making earlier is those would be the ones that would trouble me, because I think that A, they'd be inflationary, B, you'd get retaliation, C, they would disrupt a lot of companies who depend on imported products, supply chain products, intermediate products, and the price of those would go up and the price of their final goods would go up. So I'm really focusing for the moment on this, and I'd like to see what the final proposals are. Cleet's right, we should wait. But I'm simply saying that some of the rhetoric now is quite disturbing, and I think you'd find that a number of companies, if they were really worried that these things were going to happen, would find also that their production and their consumer goods sales were going to be disrupted. And that's what troubles me. And we don't need more inflationary pressures at this point while the Fed's cutting rates. And the Fed would be having to do second thoughts if it saw more inflation because of higher tariffs.
It's really the only sort of political stance that Democrats can take right now, because Biden left on almost all the tariffs and actually increased some. So the way that you can sort of justify that and still trash the Trump tariffs, the proposed tariffs, was by saying, well, you know, some of them are targeted. We like the good tariffs. We just don't like the bad tariffs.
Well, thank you for helping me with my argument here. But look, the big point is that these plans are all still being developed. And when they're rolled out after President Trump wins the election, I expect that you're going to see tariffs that are trying to achieve a lot of the exact same goals that Bob is talking about, bipartisan goals. I mean, what is President Trump trying to do? He's trying to bring more manufacturing back to the United States. He's trying to combat unfair trade practices, which is exactly why the Biden administration were adopting and increasing some of the Trump tariffs. And then third, he's trying to restore balance to the international order. And I think when you look at this tariff proposal, you've got to put it in the context that most of the rest of the world has higher tariffs than we do. You go through the list: Japan, EU, India, China. Some of these countries have tariffs that are 3 or 5 times as high as the United States. And so by putting in place a larger tariff in the United States, hopefully we can force that conversation that it sounds like everyone here wants to have, which is how do we work together to bring down tariffs globally? And that's what I'm looking forward to.
How the fiber that Corning makes is really important for what you're doing in terms of transmitting so much data. You have laid out some really aggressive goals. I think you said enterprise growth, you wanted to see compound annual growth of at least 25% through 2027, but you've been kind of knocking that out of the park. This week you reported growth in that business of more than 55%. What's happening? What's the demand picture that you're seeing?
Well, what's driving our demand is to do Gen AI, you need to connect the GPUs, each one to each other in these large GPU clusters, and you connect them with fiber. And it takes around 10 times more fiber in a Gen AI-enabled data center than it would in a traditional data center. So as the world's technology and market leader in this technology, it gives us great opportunity not only to grow, but to innovate. And that's what we're doing. And what's driving our outperformance is the really strong adoption of our new Gen AI products.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks, And while everybody's at on wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.